This is Luke Rudkowski of WeAreChange.org, and welcome to the We Are Change live Sunday show. And joining me from the ball freezing cold is Jason Bermas from upstate New York. Currently, I am in Acapulco, Mexico, at the Dollar Vigilantes, Jeff Berwick's house. We're working on a lot of great high-quality content, especially when it comes to health, restarting your life and being the best version of yourself and all this other stuff. But today on this show, we are going to go over all the important news that happened this week that, of course, the powers that be usually use propaganda to trick you and not tell you the truth about. And in reality, the truth is a lot more complicated than the left, right, mainstream media and oligarchs and all these corporatists and horse trade media people will ever tell you. But I'm just babbling on right now. Jason, how are you, and what's the first story we have?
Well, the first story we're going to go over is obviously what went down in Hollywood, because there are people out there in the alternative media that are assuring us there's no way that this could have happened, that this is either a psychological operation or it's an attack against Trump. And then you have the other end of the spectrum where the mainstream media really isn't questioning it enough. So we're going to go in depth. We're going to go into the timeline they released late last night on the East Coast and talk about whether this is plausible or not, Luke. You know, obviously there are a lot of different things that could have happened here. But again, we have to use discernment, because the idea that this wasn't taken care of for more than 38 minutes, sometimes they're reporting, isn't quite true. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty of this, Luke. Here's the article right here. It came out of the Hill. Hawaii officials give a timeline of events surrounding the false alarm. Now, admittedly, this starts at about 8:05 and then into 8:07 in the morning. That's when people begin to get those text messages. And they must have been scary, Luke. Can you imagine getting one of those texts that there were ballistic missiles coming in? Wait a minute. Yep. If you live in a third world nation where there happen to be brown people, well, they don't get a text message. They just get sirens and bombs, don't they, Luke?
Or oil underneath your feet, or natural resources, or global geopolitical alliances that somehow don't work in your region but work in the favor of the U.S. petrodollar or other U.S. allies that are very important to reveal. Now, it's important to understand what happened here. By the way, this is a family-friendly show. We are not going to be cursing. So later on, of course, we will be talking about Poopgate. Now, I could definitely bet, Jason, that a lot of people pooped their pants inside of Hawaii, with some people not getting another text message till 38 minutes later. I mean, there's videos right now of children going into the ducts, going into like any safe passageway that they could get to in total fear and panic. And of course, a lot of people are being very skeptical and saying, how could this be an accident? And of course, people are going to all these speculations and going through all these theories, while the mainstream media is telling you, hey, just believe the government. The government never lies to you. But Jason, go over that timeline and what you think exactly happened.
All right, and again, all of this is still speculation, and we only have the government timeline to work with. And like you were talking about, there were a lot of people in fear. There are a lot of videos out there. There were celebrities like Magic Johnson and Jim Carrey who were in Hawaii that, you know, tweeted out that feeling that they only had 10 minutes to live. But what are the facts in this case? Now, number one, they are running a drill. Now, that shouldn't be surprising. There has been a lot of hype, Luke, especially on CNN, in Fox News. This is where they're always lockstep. There's hype against North Korea, and North Korea having the missile capability to hit Hawaii. So, by their words, a routine internal test during a shift change was initiated. This was a test that involved the emergency alert system, the wireless emergency alert, but no warning sirens. And let's put that out there. So, you know, there's the theory out there that I've heard that they did launch a missile, but they knocked it out of the sky within 5 minutes. So, you know, that's why they were able to retract this and then get it moving. If that were the case, we probably would have heard the warning sirens. This doesn't seem like a cover-up to me. At 8:07, the warning test was triggered statewide by the state warning point. So it took 2 minutes from the mistake for it to get triggered. Now, within 3 minutes at 8:10 a.m., the state adjutant Major General Joe Logan validated with U.S. Pacific Command that there was no missile launch. So now we're talking about, from start to finish, a 5-minute response time to put this into motion to end everything. And by 8:13 in the morning, State warning point issues the cancellation of that message. So what that means basically, Luke, is if you were charging your phone, okay, and it was off at that time, and you turned it on after 8:13 in the morning, you would not have gotten that text message. So they stopped the alerts at that point. And then by 8:20 in the morning, it was on Facebook and Twitter that this was fake. So from the time that it went on people's cell phones, 13 minutes, to literally, or 13 minutes earlier, from 8:07 to 8:20, is really the response time it didn't get out. And then they had to go through FEMA, they had to go through the National Security Agency, they had to go through all these different protocols to send out that text message warning people that, again, this was not the case, there was no ballistic missile. Now, to me, that seems like a valid response. However, is there the possibility that this is a psychological operation? Absolutely, Luke, and let's speak to that. Let's talk about the fact that the government has done this before, and especially with the War of the Worlds broadcast. They promoted that broadcast of Orson Welles as fact and not fiction to see the response of the people. So is there a possibility that they wanted to see what the response time of the people were if it were under attack, or just test whether or not people would actually buy into this, Luke?
I literally had that same article up right now on my laptop when you just brought up War of the Worlds, but there's even other documents, and the CIA openly talking about, like they did in October 1952, of using psychological warfare with a secret plan of a fear of aliens invading the world. So we know that there is, potentially something a lot more sinister here, especially when it comes to seeing how human beings will react and testing that with specific bigger kind of control grid tests with their bigger ambitions that they always have. Now, there's, of course, a number of rumors and speculations and theories out there on the internet right now. One of them that we're hearing was that the threat was real and that the missile was shot down. Another one was that this system was hacked, which provoked a reaction from Donald Trump. I'm trying to read through all of them that we're hearing right now, that this system was commandeered by a disgruntled employee. We're hearing that the monitoring system used to look for incoming threats malfunctioned, that this was a false alert, that this was staged, that this was mistakenly exactly just a mistake. And of course, a lot of people talking about the drills, since there were a lot of drills on 9/11 in New York City, since there were a lot of drills at the 7/7 bombings in London. So of course, we're getting a whole lot of speculation, but ultimately, I think it'll be best to understand what is the audience think. Definitely let me know in the comment section below. We are going to be doing a full kind of AMA after this broadcast. But I think for right now, it's really hard to pinpoint anything specifically, but it's good not to jump on either extremes right now. And just to be wary and just to be skeptical of the information that we're getting from either the official sources or the people with no sources at all. Because usually the truth is always somewhere in the middle.
And you couldn't have said it better. The truth probably is somewhere in the middle, and this is only speculation. But again, it looks to me like they seemed like they were having actual drills, actual ballistic missile drills regarding a threat like North Korea. Something went awry. I don't think the drill was meant to go live, like some people again are speculating, or that a bomb was on the way. However, you never know. You can't throw those things out the window, right, Luke? I mean, we have to keep looking at them, but until there's actually some solid evidence, it's best not to jump to conclusions, especially when we know that they didn't perpetrate this for a long time, and within 13 minutes they had corrected themselves on social media. With that, I want to talk about social media and get to our next story, because Bill Clinton has taken to social media, Luke, to say, no way, Jose, I did not use Haiti relief funds for my supposed daughter, that is, Chelsea Clinton's wedding. What do you got to say about this one, Luke? Because WikiLeaks had a lot to say about it.
I mean, just the audacity, just the balls and the cojones on the Clinton. It's really incredible. I mean, we just also this week went through the anniversary of the Haiti earthquake that happened 8 years ago. And you're seeing the Clintons, like Hillary Clinton, being like, oh, this is not a poop hole country. This is the anniversary. That was so devastating. It's a day to remember. It's a tragedy. Oh, it's an honor that these resilient people of Haiti and African Americans are committed to helping our neighbors. I'm reading her tweet right now verbatim. Whatever. And then she's going on about Trump's ignorant racist views. Meanwhile, Clinton And the whole Clinton crime family are the ones who rape and looted that entire country, gave a gold mine to her gosh darn brother, and now it's coming out that they took the funds that was supposed to help devastated Haitians from that extremely massive earthquake and spent it on a freaking wedding, which WikiLeaks is pretty much ultimately confirming right now that's happening. And if you ever traveled in the world, if you even either met or hung out with some Haitians or even been to Haiti, I've been to Haiti before. If you know the situation, this story is disgusting. I mean, I'm just speechless, G. I mean, seriously.
Well, let's get into it.
Talk to anybody who knows some Haitians, or just say some Haitians, or just go to Haiti. If you see what's happening in that country and the devastation and the corruption and how the government just sold out its people for the benefit of the Clintons and her brother and all these other contracts and all the scams that they run, this story just makes you sick to your stomach.
Absolutely, and the mainstream media will still contend to this day that all these allegations have been proven false. Everything about Haiti and the Clinton Foundation is false. Everything about the Clintons and Uranium One is a hoax. But let's read Unky Bill's tweet here. No Clinton Foundation funds, dash, dedicated to Haiti or otherwise, dash, were used to pay for Chelsea's wedding. It's not only untrue, Luke, it's a personal insult to me, to Hillary, and to Chelsea and Mark. It is so ridiculous. Listen, the guy has always been a great politician. He's always been able to word things in a manner where you're like, damn right, Bill. Damn right, it's an insult. And I love the WikiLeaks response, and that's what we're going to get to, because they go to the Podesta emails, which is literally the factual gift that keeps on giving. Every time I talk to somebody who's a relatively intelligent person, usually somebody of an authoritative nature, usually they work in the school system, they're a superintendent somewhere, in these liberal art schools. And I am not going to sit here and bash liberals, by the way. I'm just talking about, I'm in an area where there's a lot of that liberal art stuff going on. I'm not here to bash liberal, it's not about left or right. But the bottom line is, when you show them an actual Podesta email, like WikiLeaks does here, and let's go to that email, Luke, because it's so important, then they really are speechless. Bill Clinton claims that no Clinton Foundation funds, in quotation marks, were used to pay for Chelsea Clinton's wedding. However, the leaked email from them top Bill Clinton aide, Doug Band, doesn't say funds. It says resources. So you can hearken back to the day that Unky Bill, and here is that email up on the screen for all to read, and you can look it up for yourself. This is an actual email. It's never been contested. This is real. It's 100% real. And again, it harkens back to the day, Luke, we're going to go right to you, when Bill Clinton stared at a camera under being impeached and said, well, that depends on what your definition of is. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
And I did not have sex with that woman. Promise you. So I mean, the Clintons are. You gotta kind of respect it, because they are like the most best professional liars. I mean, there's a reason they say that Washington D.C. is Hollywood, but for ugly people, because the acting, the kind of PR, the bull crap that they're able to push across and successfully convince a large number of the general public with is just utterly fascinating. Now, also, before we segue into the next story, just know that we are live right now. We have finally enabled Super Chats. They were actually off. We did a test run of this show a number of times. We're finally now officially doing it. So if you guys do have Super Chats, we will be answering those Super Chats right during the middle of the stories that we're sharing. And afterwards, we, of course, will be doing a full AMA and have a general conversation with you, the audience. We also, Jason, have to figure out how maybe we could take in phone calls and have random phone calls. We're just starting this. We're expanding this. We're usually going to be trying to do this every single Sunday. So we give you kind of a live kind of talk show between me and Jason, where we engage with you more than we ever did before on this platform. Now, also, talking about other kind of Democratic operatives that have been accused of sexual misconduct, we, of course, have our next story with Aziz Ansari.
Aziz Ansari, my friend. Aziz Ansari.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, him. That dude. Aziz Ansari I liked him. I liked him in some of the what was the series that he was in?
What was the series? He was in one of those Comedy Central sketch comedy series. That's not.
No, that one was horrible. He was horrible in that one. The one that he was really good in was, he's still always annoying, but he was good annoying in that place where they work in the government. Maybe they know in the chat room. What was the show that he was on?
My friend. I've seen a lot of his.
It's on Netflix.
Oh, I watched that one. You're talking about Master of None.
No.
Well, I watched Master of None the first.
Well, whatever. He plays the annoying guy. Parks and Rec. Someone got it. Thank you, Ashley the Canuck. Ashley the Canuck. Thank you for the comment. Parks and Recreations. I actually kind of enjoyed him with it because he played a good kind of annoying character. But that seems like usually his role is the kind of a annoying. Wasn't he in that like movie about marijuana as well?
I don't know if he's in the one you're talking about with Chappelle, right? I don't believe that.
No, not that one where they go to White Castle.
Oh yeah, wait, no, he's not Harold and Kumar.
Yeah, okay, he's not
Harold
that
and
one.
Kumar. No,
Okay.
not at all.
Okay, regardless, sorry, we're going off track here. Well, he has been just accused of sexual assault and misconduct in an allegation that was fully exposed by one of his dates on another website. And of course, this specific case is sparking a lot of debate, especially on Twitter. A lot of people are supporting Aziz. A lot of people are supporting the supposed alleged victim here of this date that is deciding to remain anonymous since she is not a famous person. But Jason, do you have more about this specific story and the exact allegations against Aziz and why this is not such a big case as the next story that we're going to get into right after this, which is even more important, but being ignored almost completely compared to this story?
Well, exactly. And first of all, I'm not here to take sexual assault lightly. However, sexual assault is never even alleged in this case, Luke. In fact, what it sounds like is a bad date. And I think we've all had bad dates. Some of the things that she alleges is that he didn't take her verbal and nonverbal cues and was, quote unquote, forceful with her. Now, I think...
Well, I think the story even said specifically that she had a hard time communicating it and that she tried to communicate it with non-verbally doing that. And that leaves a lot of question marks, which a lot of people are saying, well, you know, if something's happening to you and you're consenting and then decide not to consent, you have to say something instead of just non-verbally trying to show that you may or may not be uncomfortable. So that's the side, that's the arguments that are being made against and in support of Aziz right now on Twitter.
Absolutely. And again, it doesn't seem like she didn't consent to the date that they were on. It doesn't seem like he had any authoritation over her. In other words, she wasn't working with or for him. Again, it looks like a bad date with a celebrity. And unfortunately, if you people out there are naive enough to believe that people don't throw themselves sexually at celebrities, once again, you're not living in the real world. How many dates do you think that Aziz actually went on where it was the first date and he did have sex with that woman just based on his fame alone, Luke? I mean, that's a reality whether people want to realize it or not. And from these allegations, it doesn't seem like he groped her inappropriately. We know he didn't drug her. We know he didn't forcibly take her somewhere where she didn't want to go. Yet this is headline gossip news. This is part of that celebritard culture that I rail against all the time, Luke. But you know what they don't want to talk about? They don't want to talk about the dozens of child rape allegations against a guy like Bryan Singer, who not only worked with Kevin Spacey, but really gave him the role that launched a career with The Usual Suspects. There's a key correlation a lot of people are not making. Bryan Singer is the main focus of An Open Secret, one of the most excellent documentaries out there in the last few years, bar none, but the most effective and excellent documentary about child abuse and pedophilia in Hollywood, and it is a must-watch. And right now, Bryan Singer has been removed from FX as an executive producer on the show Legion. He has quietly had to leave many projects recently, including, of course, X-Men. He was supposed to direct that last X-Men movie. They didn't even let him do the press tour for it, Luke, because they don't want to answer these questions. And he has a lot of Hollywood buddies. The Me Too movement should be focusing on child abuse, Luke, but it seems to be moving away from it more and more and refusing to acknowledge people like Singer as abusers and continuing to quietly let them work in Hollywood while they vilify somebody like Aziz Ansari for having a bad date. What do you think?
The point couldn't be made any clearer. You're 100% right. And let's just admit it. Let's just admit it. I mean, it's a very big statement, but let's be real here. The mainstream media protects and is a part of a larger pedophile ring. We've seen that with Kevin Spacey ignoring the allegations against him, but at the same time, when they finally did come out, they said, oh, wow, Kevin Spacey's gay. Give him a round of applause, guys. Even not mentioning the fact that he was an accused pedophile. And there's more and more victims coming out, little boys, of being sexually abused. Look what happened with the BBC covering up the horrible upper echelons of the British royalty and establishment with Jimmy Savile, with even the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom coming out admittedly as pedophiles, as attackers and abusers of children. And sadly, those people will never face the day and light of justice because they passed away. And they passed away without ever dealing with the full ramifications of the most horrible, decrepit act that you could commit on another human being, and that is taking away their innocence and abusing your power as a high echelon member of society, being able to get away with it. So yeah, this kind of new wave feminism that's taken over the Me Too movement, I mean, they just need to realize, hey, let's stop making it just about us. Let's not just making it about individuals. This is way bigger here. We're only scratching the surface with all the sexual abuse, with all the major stories that are coming out from Hollywood, from Washington, D.C., that yes, there is a bigger ring here that is a lot more powerful, that has a lot more power, that is a lot more bigger than just Harvey Weinstein. And a lot of times it's linked to this sick satanic belief that they get power from abusing little children. So, I mean, it's just bad to talk about sometimes because it makes me feel bad. I mean, like look what kind of world we're living in. You know, Aziz has a bad date. Boom, big social media thing. This dude, this Bryan Singer dude, like, no one's talking about this.
Nobody.
No one.
And we're talking about years of allegations and hush money and documentaries and blacklistings. And yet we can't talk about it, Luke, and it's really upsetting. And, you know, at the tail end, you talked about Satanism, you talked about cultism, you talked about power. Now, we know that rape, anyway, isn't really a sexual thing. It is about power. And then we do know that people like Aleister Crowley that very much gave to these cults, these very different type of cult activities, talked about sexual magic and talked about the abuse of children and virgins. It's a crazy thing to talk about because, again, we can't imagine it. It's not part of our daily lives. It sounds like a movie. It sounds like a Hollywood script. But Corey Feldman, who has been talking about this elite pedophile ring for some time, has now confirmed this week that indeed Satanists and cultists are a part of it. And again, those Podesta emails are the gifts that keep on giving. In those Podesta emails, we have that specific email about children visiting a farm as entertainment and being in a hot tub. And we have that specific email that WeAreChange.org broke back in the day. A lot of people don't remember that, about spirit cooking and basically this ritualistic, bloodletting cult activity at the highest levels with quote-unquote performance artist Marina Abramovic, huge DC lobbyist Tony Podesta, and the head of the Clinton campaign, his brother John. In the mainstream media, Luke, they won't touch that. But they want to talk about a bad date with Aziz, my friend.
Yeah, this is all retarded. Sorry, hearing a big feedback loop here. Anyway, I think we're going to keep moving on. We're going to be here all day if we're just going to keep yelling about the satanic pedophiles in the upper echelons of society. You can talk about that all night long. But let's keep the show moving here. We also have a super chat that I wanted to acknowledge. We have $2 from King Kong that wrote 10.00. Well, thank you so much, King Kong. We're going to move on. And I think, Jason, the biggest story this week by the mainstream media, which brought it out to the general public, was, of course, family-friendly show, poop hole countries. The whole poop hole scandal has been immersed on almost every single mainstream media news channel. To me, this is an utter and huge distraction, because as that is happening, we're literally obsessing about a president using a bad word, and of course being unpresidential, whatever. Does that really, and I have to point this out, does it really matter when we're obsessing about his words when he just literally pardoned 5 mega banks for corruption, which he was also financially involved with, some of them, as Barack Obama literally is dropping bombs on these countries, and Donald Trump following suit, continuing almost his foreign policy to the T? We are still concerned about, oh, well, he called them a poop hole country. Meanwhile, the bombs are making them poop holes. And no one even acknowledges that at all. If you look at what's been happening, there's finally even an audit happening within the U.S. Pentagon. And just in this initial audit, we have already found out that $830 million in missing helicopters is just one of the mystery items that we are finding out that have gone completely missing from American taxpayers in the billions and trillions of dollars. Just as we're talking, we had the U.S. House of Representatives pass a new law expanding NSA spying powers that get to see and look into every aspect of your life by the upper echelons, by the deep state, by the authorities. But yet no one's talking about that. And to me, Jason, this is the biggest kind of distraction happening right now, and we're missing so many important stories with just these stupid words. Jason, what do you think?
Well, you couldn't be more correct. There were so many points to hit on there. And let's just talk about the language for a minute. Now, to me, one of the more appealing things of Trump is that he speaks more like a normal person. Sure, this guy is still a billionaire. Sure, this guy is still an actor. Sure, this guy is still a gangster. Again, folks, you don't build Atlantic City without working with organized crime. Sure, he's still a misogynist. You know, again, but you knew what you were voting for. A guy who'd been married 3 times and ran beauty pageants. These things should not be surprises, not only to his base, which they're really not. You know, his base doesn't believe that he's a hard-working Christian man. They think he was better than the last guy. And honestly, in a lot of regards financially, he may be. But at the same time, at that same token, the mainstream media refuses to go after the real stories of him pardoning big banks like you just talked about, Luke. And this is the administration of Goldman Sachs. To deny that is to deny the sun comes up in the morning, Luke. I mean, there have never been this many. Lloyd Blankfein, the head of Goldman Sachs, actually made a comment about how many people Trump had taken from him, how it was going to be hard to do business. Like, to talk about Orwellian speak. Oh yeah, I'm sure it's going to be so hard for you to do business, Mr. Blankfein, with so many people on the inside of the White House to do your Goldman Sachs bidding. I mean, it's actually mind-blowing that nobody is even talking about this in the alternative media. And then we can talk about the fact that there are some S-hole or poop-hole countries out there. Again, this isn't something that's not being discussed among other politicians in private rooms. Of course it is. They talk like this, like normal human beings, just like you and I, and just like the president. So it is so much of a non-issue. And to your final point, that nobody is concerned that this place, this country, is turning more and more into a police state S-hole every day with the passing of FISA and the expansion of domestic spying, and really only one lone voice in government against it. Rand Paul was the only person I saw on television even discussing the fact that blanket collection of data against the United States citizens is unconstitutional and against the Bill of Rights. He's the only guy that said it, Luke. Not one other person stepped up to the plate. Talk about that.
Yeah, we also have another super chat by King Kong saying that state and local corruption is the story, and I definitely agree with you. We have another super chat from Humpty Dumpty 762, which we're going to get into after we cover all the stories. But I think the bigger point here is, yes, the president said a bad word, but here, when we're losing our freedoms, we are becoming a poop hole country. And all in the name of the bigger military-industrial complex that has been creating and accelerating countries to become more poopier. Sorry, again, a family-friendly show. If you look at what happened in Iran in 1953, the United States effectively helped create a poop hole country. Guatemala, 1954. Congo in 1961. South Vietnam, 1963. Indonesia, 19607. Chile, 1973, Haiti, 1991, Iraq, 2003, Libya, 2011, Syria, 2013, and on and on and on. Now also Donald Trump with the country of, what country is it bombing now? He's bombing so many new countries, it's even hard to stay on track of everything. I'll come back to that. But if you look at the direct U.S. kind of military-industrial complex indebting this country, which is eventually all the poop's going to come on down because of that debt and the, what is it now, over $21 trillion that the U.S. owes, in order to start fights and conflicts that have utterly destroyed and devastated nations all over the world, making them poop hole countries. And to me, that's where the dialogue, this is where the discussion should be happening, not just, oh, the president said something bad. So it makes no sense. So we can just keep moving on, especially when it comes to other CIA intervention news. Jason, you have the next story when it comes to Moby and his connections with the CIA.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And again, the entertainment industry and the CIA are actually, they're embedded together. Hollywood and the CIA, there's a great film out there. A lot of people have probably never seen it, never heard about it. I think it came out in maybe between 2004 and 2006. It's called This Film Is Not Yet Rated, and it shows you how the Motion Picture Association of America was infiltrated by the CIA. One of the heads of the CIA became the head of the Motion Picture Association of America and the rating system, and that's just a small piece of how the CIA has infiltrated Hollywood. Now here is just the latest example of a real psychological operation, a psychological operation that now is much easier to prove, Luke. And here it is. Moby claims that the CIA asked him to post about Trump and Russia, specifically the dossier that we know has a lot of inaccuracies and outright lies. Now, that's not to say, by the way, Luke, that there isn't some accurate information in that dossier. Obviously, there is. But what this shows is, first of all, why does Moby have friends in the CIA? I mean, why are the CIA, how do they hook up with somebody that is going to Hollywood parties, on tour, in the entertainment industry, and all of a sudden these are his friends? It shows you how large of a reach government truly has. And also,
not only a reach, but how interconnected they are, and how also, historically speaking, before, there have been major Hollywood actors who were CIA agents and on the payroll of the CIA, as well as news reporters, which was also officially declassified in U.S. Operation Mockingbird. And we also have to understand, Hollywood and the deep state and the CIA or big politics, they go hand in hand together. They understand the influence and the power that they have with being able to send out subliminal propaganda in order to shape the population to the bidding of the corporatocracy and the very few elites. It's even been exposed throughout documents that hundreds of U.S. movies and even TV series have been in one way or another affected by the CIA, especially when it comes to their scripts, and the CIA coming in and changing the scripts and pushing certain narratives on the American people. If you look at the United States, other than just the fiat dollar, one of our major exports is, of course, entertainment. I travel all around the world. A lot of the countries always follow American culture, American music, American movies, and we are the kind of trendsetters of this world. It would be silly of the CIA not to get involved, but the way that they are is astonishing for the average American, especially knowing the history of the CIA and some of the deep, covert, really unethical, horrible things that they have done throughout their existence. And now, they have a huge hand in how society is influenced. And the best way to do it is, of course, through Hollywood.
And you know what? Again, this is such an in-your-face example of how they are trying to spread disinformation through social media. Now, is that to say that, Trump is the greatest because the CIA tried to not get him elected? Absolutely not. It's to say that, they were doing the bidding of that same Bush crime cartel that's been in power for some time. You know, the Clintons are very much a part of that cartel, were when they were in Arkansas. It's detailed in the Iran-Contra affair, and by the way, we're going to talk about Iran and the Middle East a little bit later. But the bottom line is this is a real solid example, and by the way, it doesn't seem like Moby fell for this. You know, and this is a pretty left-leaning, liberal guy, and it shows you that not everybody, a lot of people did not buy into that Clinton Kool-Aid this year. There were so many people, like Seth Rich, that were so behind Bernie Sanders. It was a huge blow, and it was a tough pill to swallow that they had to rally for somebody that they knew was corrupt. That in their heart of hearts, Luke, they knew the Podesta emails and WikiLeaks was real. Remember, before the Podesta emails came out, the left used to hail WikiLeaks when they were printing stuff about Gitmo. They used to hail WikiLeaks when they would come out against the Bush administration, when they were reporting on private military groups such as Blackwater run by Eric Prince. And now the script has flipped. It's really crazy how people's viewpoints are so embedded in that false left-right paradigm. But I'd like to commend Moby right here for not drinking the Kool-Aid and publishing the article and even putting this into the mainstream media, showing that there was indeed a deep state operation to try to help Trump not get elected, because they just simply don't have as much control over him. But they still have Goldman Sachs, don't they, Luke? Want to get to the next story, my friend?
Well, Trump is openly allowing all the Goldman Sachs people in there. One of the first speeches he gave as president was to the CIA, complimenting them and kind of verbally kissing their buttocks. And I don't know, man. Like, some of the moves, it's hard to pinpoint. So I think there is a faction of kind of CIA, deep state, State Department, old officials who don't like Donald Trump. But I also see a lot of pandering by Donald Trump to them. And I think this has to come to a head because I don't think it's working at all. But at the same time, like, the ramifications here, there's so much unknown. It's hard to kind of proceed. And in more kind of unknown, unpredictable news, we, of course, are finding out that Prince Alwaleed, one of the royalties of Saudi Arabia that was recently cleansed from royalty during the purge in Saudi Arabia, has now been moved to the highest security Saudi Arabian prison after refusing to pay the $6 billion for his freedom. Now, this is an extremely interesting story, seeing this unfold. We've seen this kind of purge happening in that country, which many people are speculating was a very financial move, since Saudi Arabia is in extreme financial troubles. According to many analysts, they will not be able to sustain and survive their empire. They are a country that has a lot of people who are dependent on government welfare. They have to import their food. They will run out of their water supply very shortly, and with the demand of oil going dramatically down, with the price still stagnating, many economic experts are saying that the Saudi empire will fall very soon. And of course, many people are pointing to this purge as being one of the reasons that this happened, with them trying to consolidate their power, secure their power, and take away money from the richest people. Now, Prince Alwaleed has refused that, but Prince Alwaleed also had a very interesting spat with Donald Trump, right, Jason?
Well, this is the fact, and let's read the tweet that's on the board. Now, first of all, you know what? It's up on the board. For those that want to read it, I want to give you a little background on this guy. This isn't just somebody that's been arrested, Luke. This is Forbes' top 50 wealthiest people in the world, ranking at number 45. This is a guy that has been in business with oil and the United States and been an ally for decades, Luke. And the tweet we're going to read right now was from December 2015. Donald Trump, if you don't think the moves that are being made in Saudi Arabia right now aren't U.S. and globalist interest-based, because I just don't see, Luke, them being able to do this without this being in the interest of the globalists. No matter how powerful you think the presidency and Trump is, you know, they were able to convince him one way or another this was the right move, and this is absolutely U.S.-backed. Donald J. Trump, dopey prince at Alawid Talil, wants to control our U.S. politicians with daddy's money. Can't do it when I get elected. Hashtag Trump 2016, baby. And I'll tell you what, he delivered on that one. But do we know whether this is a positive or a negative thing? Only time is going to tell. Remember, 9/11, an international intelligence operation where 17 of the 19 hijackers came out of a CIA-run Saudi embassy. Somebody who was heavily embedded with us, that has been exposed in those 28 pages that are still pretty redacted. Remember that people like Khalid al-Mihdhar rented from and lived with an FBI informant. Intelligence agencies were all over these people, helping them all along the way. Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, both a part of that. Israel a part of the operations on the ground. And of course, people inside the United States to help not only the operation go down, Luke, but people like Robert Mueller heading up the FBI with the man, Michael Chertoff, who will become the head of Homeland Security, denying the right of Robert Wright and others of the FBI to tell the truth through Judicial Watch. And it amazes me that this has gone by the wayside, and someone like Tom Fitton is on Fox News almost regularly now with all these Judicial Watch documents, the latest being more emails that were classified on Anthony Weiner's laptop. Yet he never mentions the 80,000 FBI documents under Mueller that are still classified to this day about 9/11. We're not talking about 28 pages here, Luke. We're talking about 80,000 documents. And if that's not deep state, you know, we talk about the back and forth of the deep state. Robert Mueller is a part of that. And the other thing they're not talking about, this purge in the Middle East, Luke, there are two big stories that we're just not hearing about enough. Number one, there are Americans apparently in this hotel. Now we have this prince who's been moved from the hotel into a high security prison. But there's been an exclusive by the Daily Mail. Nobody's touched it. I did a report on this on the Daily Drop, and please tune into that. It's every day on Facebook. I'm going to be broadcasting after this program. But it has 7 Western men that are in that hotel that are lobbyists. They're not saying who they're lobbying for. We know they're United States. We know they're British. We know they're French. And the question is, are these inside operatives, or are they people, again, working against the best interests of the United States and Saudi Arabia and deserving of their punishment? The bottom line is we don't have enough information about this. We don't have enough information about what's going on in Iran, where it seems like there may be a coup d'etat that is backed by the United States. You know, we were talking about those S-holes that we create. Iran was one of them under Mossadegh. And again, one of these things that's being completely unreported, and it's our final story that we're going to use as a caveat to this Saudi story, is that the man that was going to wipe Israel off the map, Iranian President Ahmadinejad, arrested for inciting unrest, and they're saying this happened right after Christmas, and now we haven't heard anything about this report in over a week, Luke. What is your take?
I mean, we've seen news reports like RT, sorry, hearing my feedback again, report on it like it was fact, and other news organizations report on it like it's fact. Obviously, the Iranians are staying very tight-lipped. We're seeing a lot of social media being restricted from that country. It usually even normally is. So it's very hard to say, and it leaves people in a very hard predicament, in a very hard position, because there is a greater geopolitical move to topple Iran, especially by Saudi Arabia. So I think what we're learning from the last few months is that nothing is untouchable. Just like in Saudi Arabia, 300 princes and ministers and other elites, one day, just bam, overthrown with the U.S. support. It's very interesting that, you know, of course, we have the whole 9/11 past with Saudi Arabia and Israel and the United States all working in cohesion. It is interesting to see Donald Trump, who previously before was bringing it up and talking about it on the national stage, saying that he would finally expose this, finally release 28 pages, finally do due diligence when it comes to American foreign policy in Saudi Arabia. And then as soon as he became president, he stepped right in line with Israel, with Saudi Arabia, followed pretty much the identical foreign policy by Barack Obama, and is still continuing the same shared interest, one of them being toppling Iran. And at the same time, many people don't even know this, he is still having a program that is open that is still supporting rebels inside of Syria. So there clearly is a lot to figure out here. There's a lot of different factions. Who's on whose side is more unpredictable than it has ever been. But the agenda, what is happening, the kind of when the dust settles, we're usually there trying to figure out, okay, who bono, who did it work in its benefit, and we try to break it down to you as best as we can on this YouTube channel. How it is going to move and unfold, obviously there's going to be more kind of Western Saudi Israeli attacks on Iran. I see that situation escalating, and I see it finally kind of crescendoing before the next presidential election. That's just my own personal belief, not based off any documents, not based off any evidence. Just from my analysis from the years previously before, I do see it coming to a crescendo moment and a finalizing moment right before Donald's presidency. It's just a gut feeling I have after looking at all the geopolitical and foreign policy news that I have been seeing happening in this country. Other than that, I don't know what else to add to that specific story, unless you have something else you want to finish with, Jason.
I just want to say that I completely agree with you that it's really tough to tell where this is going to go, but it does seem to be that we are reshaping our allies in the Middle East, especially with Saudi Arabia. And again, what's really going on in Iran? Because if Ahmadinejad is now on the side of the protesters, and this is an uprising that is being supported by the United States, was he an agent provocateur all along? I mean, that's an actual possibility. He was always a very big moderate. They were always able to use him to beat the drums whenever they needed a crisis. They never went in. There was never a hot war in Iran. And believe me, on this program, we don't want hot wars. But just like Luke talked about, there's really huge problems in places like Syria, in Afghanistan. Guantanamo Bay ain't closed, folks. And we have not heard the end of Saudi Arabia by any means. And the idea that 300 high-level people in the government for decades upon decades have now been purged, and one of them was one of the 50th richest men in the world. It's a story we are going to have to explore and keep our eyes on, because the mainstream media is absolutely 100% not doing their job on that story and giving us limited information. And it's so important that we keep up on that story, Luke.
I mean, it's important to understand that the Iranian people do have a lot of reasons, especially economically, to protest their government. At the same time, again, the truth is somewhere always in the middle. Israel and the United States are up to their usual dirty tricks like they have been for decades, as is written and approved and even exposed by themselves in declassified CIA documents on how they had an overthrow of their previous government when it wasn't going along with the U.S. interest and the U.S. petrodollar. So I think we covered all the important stories that we were going to go over. Now we, of course, are going to have a little 10-minute, 20-minute AMA. So if you guys have any questions, we will be talking to you directly in the live chat, and, of course, prioritizing the super chats and answering the questions that are asked by the super chats first. It's important to note that Jason does these shows on his own on our Facebook page. So if you go to facebook.com/Luke, WeAreChange. No, not Luke, sorry. Facebook.com/WeAreChange.org. Yeah, put an extra dot in there. You will be able to be on our kind of main Facebook page before they take it down and destroy it, just like they did David Icke's a few weeks ago. We're still there and still broadcasting live and interacting with you live every single day. Jason is there talking to you, doing his daily drops. I think we should also have more of a schedule of when exactly people should expect you. Do you usually have a set time, Jason, when you're on and people could expect you to be on?
You know, I usually do it sometime between 6 and 8. However, obviously with my working schedule, it's kind of tough. I didn't get it done until 10 p.m. last night. Always trying to edit a report. But as you know, Luke, and as I've told the Facebook audience, I'm going to start going full-time here in the beginning of March. March 6th will be my first day officially full-time. And then we are going to have a set schedule not only for the Facebook program, but for this Sunday program. And also, you know, hopefully live interviews and man-on-the-street type reports when there's big news out there. We're all about the expansion, folks, and with your support, we are only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And this year alone has been a huge year for WeAreChange, getting up over 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, a platform that's really actively working to censor us. You know, Luke being verified on Twitter finally this year, I believe it was in the past year, when, you know, he's been a force in alternative media for a long time, and now we know within the last week, Luke, that they're shadow banning people. But now moving to other operations like DTube, Steam It, live streaming on Facebook. Facebook, I've done kind of like that open voice to Zuckerberg saying, hey, you want a creator-based platform? Don't do this left and right nonsense. Let real voices be out there. Encourage real voices. What's wrong with ideas that are open and honest and not politically based, Luke? I think that's what we need more of, and I think that's what WeAreChange really is. It's a organization that is in media for the people, for the truth, not for some politician, not for some dinosaur belief in conservatism or liberalism, but in humanity in general and common sense, my friend.
Yeah, and like I've been really busting my hump the last few days, not only trying to be the best version of myself, but also at the same time meeting with people, strategizing, organizing. Yesterday we debuted a show that was with cryptocurrencies. We're testing it out. If it does well, if you guys enjoy it, share it. And we're going to continue a new cryptocurrency show every single Saturday with Josh of World Alternative Media. If it does bad, we just won't do it. I'm in talks with a field reporter right now that wants to go to Iraq and do real on-the-ground reporting. And she is a very famous human being that went through incredible stories when it comes to exposing ISIS, when it comes to exposing other governments in the region. And I'm talking to her right now currently about doing some real on-the-ground work for WeAreChange and fundraising some money because she is sick and tired of doing stories and the mainstream media totally censoring it. And the point of view and the story she shared of what's really happening in the Middle East and what we're getting is just mind-blowing, even for me covering this for years now. I'm also in talks with other people that you know as well, Jason, other professional employees in this region that are no longer at other outlets. I'm talking about working with them in a more professional manner. So it all really just begins with you guys giving super chats, with you guys donating, with you guys helping with cryptocurrencies, with you guys buying a t-shirt on teesprings.com/WeAreChange, with you guys being involved, sharing this video, being involved in the comment section, talking to us, helping us grow and expand. The possibilities are ultimately limitless. And our main kind of job here, our main kind of duty here, is to destroy the mainstream media by doing their job better. It's been a rough ride. We had our balls kicked by Twitter, by Facebook, by YouTube, even now by Instagram. I'm getting my balls kicked in there with the shadow banning and all the other underhanded who talks against the status quo. And it's not just happening to me. It's happening to James Corbett. It's happening to Dan Dix. It's happening to people like Jeff Berwick. It's happening to a lot of the people in alternative media. It's happening to Josh of World Alternative Media. We're just getting screwed around. There was a time and day, especially when me and you, Jason, were around, where we were unstoppable. That's because a lot of these filters, a lot of these mega corporations didn't have control of the internet. And now, slowly, we're seeing it tighten. But we're fighting back, especially with you guys, especially with Super Chats, especially with DTube, especially with Steam It. So the possibilities are limitless. So we got another Super Chat by Humpty Dumpty 762. And I think this is an interesting question. He's talking about Las Vegas. Obviously, the Las Vegas shooting that happened months ago, still in so much mystery since the government is being tight-lipped. And Humpty Dumpty 762, Jason asked, was Paddock's feed live stream, was that misinfo in your opinions? What do you think about that question, Jason? I'll look for the next question as you answer this one.
You've got that. First of all, I think that, first of all, we did the best at being reserved about that on any alternative media site. And one of the first things I said when I looked at all the actual evidence that we could see, because there wasn't a lot of it, Luke, we know that. So much of that evidence from the camera footage. Obviously, there's tons of CCTV footage we've never seen, we don't know. However, what we do have are the radio wires, and we also have the eyewitness testimony of the first police officers that were in the room with several laptops set up, with the surveillance cameras that they were talking about. So yes, I do believe that's absolutely real, and they talked about suitcases of guns. And the bottom line is now, some of the alternative media that jumped the gun. They said ridiculous things like he was dressed in Antifa gear from their inside sources. From their inside sources. Nothing could have been further from the truth. But what do we find out now? Well, we find out that it's probably the case, Luke, that this guy was indeed an arms dealer. And it would make sense that he had suitcases full of guns and that he was playing poker for 8.5 hours, video poker. That's what they did admit. 8.5 hours before this attack occurred. And it was probably some kind of an arms deal that went bad. Who knows from there? You know, there's a lot of talk of false flags. I don't know what happened in that room, but the evidence points to Paddock not being a professional poker player. And I also, in one of my reports, Luke, talked about an article of 2 men that found a bug in the system to be paid out literally anything they wanted to on any of these poker machines that had a certain combination of games and software. And it would make sense that one of the reasons that we're not seeing a real investigation into this is that Las Vegas is a hotbed for these arms deals. And if they're taking place in a place like the Mandalay Bay, well, you better believe the Mandalay Bay is getting their cut, Luke. And you better believe that law enforcement on a high level is also getting their cut and know damn well what's going on. So I don't think that that was misinformation. I think that was spot on. And this guy had done this many, many times. And unfortunately, he did it one time too many, Luke, and this one cost him his life.
Yeah, we have Andrew Mayer, don't tase me, bro, good friend of mine, who was a part of this operation before, saying that Alaouid Bentali had ownership of the hotel. People are saying also in the chat room that Saudis were 100% involved in Vegas. But I have to say, one thing that I really appreciated having you on board when this whole Las Vegas thing transpired is that you kind of stuck to the facts. And we've seen a lot of bigger alternative media companies just run on complete and utter speculations, picking the worst enemy that they could possibly think of and blaming it on that based on no sources, based on no facts, and obviously none of those things have been corroborated. And they were doing it minutes, showing how politically motivated they actually were. Now we have another question from Greenlight Hawaii, who is asking, is AI creating new timelines, especially in social media? And I have to say, yes. And it's scary because just as we learned from this week's Project Veritas video and their expose, when it came to what's happening in Twitter, you saw a lot of the employees saying, well, we just help the algorithm censor a lot of the people that we want gone. And the AI is learning to be better and to be smarter at catching people, catching bots, and catching what the authority figures at Twitter don't want the general public to see. It's very fascinating seeing how fast this new technology is rising, how it already is implemented, but also the dangers and capabilities. I mean, Jason, I don't know if you want to interrupt me, but feel free. But we are already seeing AI in the not so distant future being able to completely and utterly fake voice, fake video. So we are, and now AI is also going to be, right now as we're speaking, AI is already determining what we are seeing in our timelines and what is censored away from us. So that makes me poop my pants, and that is more daunting than he's even capable of, like, understanding.
Well,
for me, at least, Jason.
Well, here's the deal, Luke. We try to do fair and honest reporting about quantum computing and artificial intelligence, and right now, in their infancy, they are going hand in hand. And one of the things you just discussed was fake audio, fake video getting better and better, especially when they have a large source sample. This is something, again, we've done extensive reporting on at our YouTube channel, WeAreChange. So, yes, it is a very, very big problem. And, you know, I was watching a very interesting podcast. I enjoy Joe Rogan's podcast. Now, he had Mick West, who is a notorious debunker, somebody that I've debated about involving geoengineering, 9/11. I don't agree with the guy. Now, he's a former Tony Hawk game developer. You know, very popular games, made his money there. Not an idiot, and at times also willing to admit that he's been wrong. For instance, he talked about face mapping technologies, thinking that video technology of face mapping and alteration would never actually get there. And, you know, to his surprise, he has a cell phone that does it relatively well, and he admits he was wrong about that. One of the things that I don't think he's going to be wrong about is that this AI is actually going to develop into social media personas. Now, some will be very outright, Luke. It'll almost be like a mascot for Google or for Twitter. And people, they will look like you and me. They will sound like you and me. They will interact with you on super chats just like this one on YouTube within 10 years. And it will be a program that acts and talks and speaks and interacts like a human being. Now, the flip side of that, Luke, is there will be plenty of those AIs that are sponsored by Google, that are sponsored by Twitter, that are sponsored by IBM and Apple, that aren't going to tell you that they are artificial intelligence, and they will sway opinion. They will post on social media. They will act like they are now human beings, and they will help shape the narrative like the mainstream media, television, propaganda in movies and radio have done for so many years. Instead, we will have literal artificial intelligence-based propaganda of what we think are human beings. And Luke, they'll be anything but human.
Everything we just said, everything I just said before is absolutely irrelevant with these two words. Can you guess what they are?
I cannot.
Sex robots. It doesn't matter about AI news. It doesn't matter about algorithms, fake videos, fake audios. As soon as the sex robots come, humanity is doomed. We're out. I'm being serious here. Like, look what's happening in Japan. I was in Japan just a few weeks ago. Yeah. I don't even have to explain anything more. Next question we have by Captain Planet. He's like, Luke and Jason, do you believe in aliens? Jason, I'll let you take that one first.
What a loaded question. First of all,
robosexuals.
Yes.
Wait, Greenlight Hawaii said robosexuals. I like that's a good comment.
Let me say this. I think one of the most interesting comments out there is by a guy named Geordie Rose, who was one of the economists behind D-Wave, getting that funded by people like Goldman Sachs, Amazon, and then bought up by the combination of NASA and Google. And they're the first quantum computers that you can buy commercially. Now, they're not scalable, they're quantum annealing, but they certainly do some incredible things. And Geordie is one of these kind of singularity Kurzweilian guys that is now, his new project is artificial intelligence. And he talks about how artificial intelligence will very much be the first alien life forms on this planet, because they aren't going to be like you and me. They aren't going to move like you and me. Excuse me one moment. Now, on the flip side of that, we don't even know what kind of reality we live in. Right now, things like the multiverse are being portrayed as a reality in the quantum computing realm, in popular culture. You know, I enjoy Rick and Morty too, but it seems like we're now pushing this idea that the multiverse is very real. So if that's the fabric of reality, what is the nature of the Earth, the moon, the stars, the universe, the multiverse, if you will, Luke? We don't know. And I think if, these are all physical things, if we are actually real, we're not some simulation program like Elon Musk talks about, again, that's something a very intelligent man is putting out there. It's something that Philip K. Dick put out there back in the 70s, that we're really just basically software running. I don't personally believe that. But again, if we are actual biological entities with souls and consciousness and intelligence, and there is an infinite universe out there, Luke, it's hard to believe that there isn't some kind of intelligent life. Now,
Alex Adavin said, Jesus, Jason, cut out the stoner bull crap. And then Ricardo Velez said, get a robotic arm and have it jerk you off. Hello.
Family-friendly show.
Another person said, I only like organic female cats, not silicone feline cats. Jason, STFU. I'm reading the comments. We're supposed to read the comments here.
I got you, but you know what? I want to stop you because you just talked about basically silicone pets. Well, that's how it's going to start, isn't it, Luke? And we already saw that.
No, not silicone pets. Not silicone pets. I'm talking about this family-friendly show. We're talking about silicone female cats. Okay. But go on.
Well, my point is that before we have the fully operational sex robots that are actually like Westworld, Luke, we will have the fully operational pets that aren't quite a dog or aren't quite a cat. Because honestly, once we get into that future level when those things are available, if somebody wants the pet that they grew up with, that type of cloning technology is probably going to be there. We already, just within the last month or two, we've had that, what was it, a lamb that was in an artificial womb, and it lived for several days after it had been born. And this is what we're seeing publicly. So, once again, aliens, it's a possibility. Is it a probability? I would say that 99.99% of the stuff that we see out there that's been declassified is, you know, literally psychological operation, bull nonsense that's out there to confuse us about life on other planets. I would recommend that people watch the movie Mirage Men. I believe it's still on Netflix. I'm not 100%. But I think that Mirage Men is, that's why I can't watch these Stephen Greer movies, man. I watched that, what was it, the Undisclosed one. It was absolutely awful. And then I tried to watch Unacknowledged. It's the one that's big on Netflix right now. There was so much horse pucky in that, Luke. It actually used one of the guys that is an admitted liar again and again and again, and basically ruined a multi-million-dollar entrepreneur with lies by him and the government that perpetrated that there were aliens out there and that he was helping the U.S. government investigate UFOs. And now we have somebody like Tom DeLonge of Blink-182 out there with this To the Stars Academy, and he's got guys from Lockheed Martin, he's got guys from NASA, he's got guys from the NSA working with him, and all I can say is, Tom, and by the way, he's in the Podesta emails. He's in the Podesta emails. He's getting taken for a ride, and I sympathize with him because we have been lied about so much, especially with aviation technologies, okay? If you think that rocket propulsion is it, folks, you are sadly mistaken. Rocket propulsion is something that the Nazis perfected in the 40s. In the 40s, Luke, we're talking about 80 years ago, okay? There's plenty of other propulsion technologies out there. There's plenty of other energy technologies out there. And I think there's a lot of disinformation regarding aliens and alien, quote-unquote, technology purposefully. Your take, Luke?
You picked the next comment. I'm going to read off some comments. And did you know that there's actually a sex robot brothel already open in Colombia right now as we're speaking? Also, Blank Spatial said that he wants a silicone puppy. Another commenter says that he wants a silicone female cat just to pay with. So someone's saying that silicone female cats will be the next currency of the future. Someone said that they got friend zoned by a sex robot. Back to the initial question. Yes, do I believe in robots? Definitely, 100%. With how big the universe is and how small we are compared to it, it would be foolish of us to think that we are alone in some way. If we are not a hologram inside artificial intelligence that has already captured us and is using us as batteries like we're in the Matrix and all the other hippy-dippy stuff that Jason Bermas got into just a bit later. But yeah, okay. Continuing on, Black Mirror Episode 4, Cat Dog Robot. Luke, notice me. I can die now in peace. Do you have any questions, Jason?
Well, I was looking through these. And, you know, again, people thought that my answer was kind of long-winded on aliens. I had somebody in the comments section talk about Geordie Rose.
I stopped paying attention. Yeah. I stopped.
Well, I saw somebody comment about Geordie Rose talking about these as demonic entities, this artificial intelligence. Well, he did. He absolutely did. But again, not in that traditional sense that they're coming from hell and Lucifer is real, but that very real warning that we have kind of like this aggrandized Terminator type idea of what artificial intelligence is going to be, Luke. But I think that we're in for a big surprise. Yep. I think it's going to be something totally and completely different. You got to understand, again, these are reports that we've done over at WeAreChange. DARPA is actively working on a brain chip now that's the size of 2 nickels that can be embedded in the back of your head. And this is something, go to DARPA's own YouTube page and watch their own lectures. This is something that took place 3 years ago, publicly. And at that time, they already had soldiers that they were using this technology on, and the readout display was very much like our first digital alarm clock, Luke. You know.
Yes, And they also have another prototype that could control people's emotions and control how they feel. And we already have seen advanced psychological tests being done by Facebook on unsuspecting Facebook users, with them controlling and manipulating your newsfeed to make you feel a specific way, and beta testing psychological warfare on you already, admittedly, in secret, only admitting to it later. So the power that these mega corporations have and the technological advancements, we are ultimately talking about God-like power. And of course, the more power you have, the more likely it is to be abused. And now, I mean, we're just living in a very terrifying, just extremely unpredictable time, I think more than ever. It's fascinating, it's exciting, you never know what's going to happen, but you just got to, the fight that we're all in, that humanity is in, is really it's the most important one that we ever had. Yeah.
Well, I'm seeing that some people want a brain chip and some people think that DARPA can suck a fart, but it goes
Would you take a brain chip? Jason, if you could take a brain chip that could make you a superhuman, would you take it?
It's so hard to say no without actually being presented with that actual, it's hypothetical now, Luke. You know what I'm saying? It's like everybody wants to live forever. I personally have no desire to die. I'm very happy with my life. I enjoy adventure. I enjoy very much this experience that me and you are having right now, interacting with people, smiling. I love having, dinner with my sister's kids. I like going to the water park. I like kicking back a beer or two. I'm going to go check out the UFC after this. There's really a lot to love about life. And to kind of jump out of this consciousness and not know what's next, I think we all have that fear. But at some point, Luke, we have to ask ourselves, when do we stop being human beings? When do we stop? I mean, is a digital copy of our consciousness, like Kurzweil promotes with his singularity, is that really our consciousness? Or what have we really created? Have we created an imitation of life instead of life itself, an imitation of consciousness? Certainly, we can't replicate that very special something that makes us human beings. So, and I don't want to be a hypocrite. I don't want to sit here and say that there's no way that I would ever take a chip when there's a possibility that it's just going to be the norm in 20 or 30 years. And that's very dangerous. I mean, I'm no Bible thumper, Luke, but when people start talking about a mark of the beast and, basically implantation in my body that may be monitored by some kind of an authoritative government entity, I get a little worried. Don't you?
Well, it's not just 30 years, Jason. We're talking about this already happening. There's already people who microchip themselves for the heck of it. And like I met someone a year ago. He put a microchip in his arm and programmed it to be his credit card, and he started messing with people just to mess with them at gas stations. He was paying for their gas, like, magically, and he was doing fake magic tricks to get people's numbers and to pick them up. So, like, we're here, and it's only going to get worse. I do personally believe that, there is a creator, there is a God, and ultimately that everything does happen for a specific reason. So I'm always at peace, but at the same time, this is far beyond our control, and, fighting it seems kind of futile, but at the same time, if you don't fight it, you're only a bigger part of the problem. So we're talking about godlike powers here. We're talking about, like, being able to be superhumans and be beyond what the Creator made us be. That is just daunting and terrifying. Personally, I would like to say I would never take, people are asking us the same questions that I just asked you. Would you take this kind of magic chip in your head? No, I wouldn't. I'm too skeptical of a person to believe any authority or mass corporation in the first place. And at the same time, I do believe there's a reason to everything. And that's why I do believe that we shouldn't be messing around with this stuff. And if we are, there should be severe controls and regulations around this stuff. And I think this is why a lot of the libertarians have been failing so dramatically in their cause and becoming less and less popular, because they keep missing the elephant in the room, and that is that private companies like Google not only have a clear monopoly on the industry, but with their AI quantum computing innovations, have the roadmap of dominating and controlling every aspect of society. And that power is only within their fingertips grasps. And it's only a matter of time until they have it all completely. Already, they wield so much power. Already, they could buy off so many politicians. Already, they could control government. But it's only going to get worse from here unless we fight it. And that's why I do what I do. And that's why there's been a kind of a big shift in our kind of programming to trying to inform you about what's happening, because again, knowledge is power. We also got another super chat by Megan Loves You All. That's a great username, Megan. And she says, love you, Luke and Jason. Been following WeAreChange since Occupy. Occupy actually has been the start of a lot of people's journey into WeAreChange since we've been doing our best work there. It's actually a time and moment where we broke off from another alternative media organization and stopped collaborating with them and did our own work very exclusively and specifically. Yeah, skipping the chip. Definitely skipping the chip. Jason, anything else you want to add on that?
No, and that is something I've discussed, though, that these chips are still commercially available, and the price has gone up significantly, but only like 5 years ago on eBay, you could get one of these RFID chips for under $10. You can inject them into your body, and that's all they are, is an RFID chip. So you can train them to do just about anything, turn on a light, unlock a door, the type of tricks that you talked about, to impress women. But quite frankly, if I have to make myself less of a human being to impress the opposite sex, I think I'm just not interested, Luke. I think that I'm just going to have to use my charm and not so good looks to get dates, and not, not magic.
Yeah. Plus, you'll get cancer, as we're finding out. A lot of dogs and cats who are getting microchipped are getting big tumors on top of exactly where their chip is, and people are saying, well, maybe this is correlated. I mean, the tumor's right there where the chip was. It's pretty clear that having radioactive frequencies, also with your cell phone. I mean, gosh darn it. Like, I'm working on a video right now as we're speaking, because I took a week off. No cell phone, no computer, no internet, no memes, no GIFs, no Grubhub, none of that for 1 week straight. And I'm having a hard time explaining just the incredible amount of hindsight and clarity and freedom and beauty that I got from that, mainly because I'm becoming another hypocrite, because I'm sharing this message on social media and I'm sharing it through the internet, which allowed me to do this. So now I'm battling through that kind of interior battle, working on the next video that I just told you about. But it's just surprising the subconscious and subliminal effects that this entire new technology has on you, and how it's advancing even beyond our controls with artificial intelligence already deciding what we see and hear right now as we're speaking. So,
well,
pooping my pants.
I got one more, and I think this is what we should end on. I got somebody in there asking us, how do we be the change we want to see in society? What's the plan? And for me, that's always reaching out locally to begin, Luke. That's the start. If you're not starting at home, if you're not starting with your own life, with your family and your friends first, well, then you're not doing anything. And I'm not talking about just posting on social media. I'm talking about having real conversations with people. Let me give you a great example how you be the change that you want to see in the world. Now, there's a video out there that I did a few years back called Oneana Rides. And I did this video for a gentleman that I worked with at a tech company called Directive. And this was a Christian individual, a pastor that had moved up here from Missouri, okay, with his wife and child to start a church. This guy is probably the best person I've ever met in my life, would do just about anything for anyone. And a few St. Patrick's Days back, I think 4 years ago now, he decided in my community, which is a college community, there are two schools here. There's a state school and a private school. SUNY Oneana, which I went to, Hartwick University, about 8,000 students in between them. And he said, you know what? These cab companies, they're not on time. There's allegations of sexual assault. They're not doing their job. There's kids on the street. I'm going to just start giving people rides for free. And he did that. And now years later, he's done several thousand rides. He has 2 different cars. He gives these people water. And, it's not just about him preaching Jesus Christ. In fact, I've been on some of these rides with him. And that's not what he does at all. He gives them a safe ride home for nothing more than a thank you. And at the end says that you know, Jesus loves you, and if we can ever help you out or you ever want to reach out, please come to the church. That's how you are the change you want to see in the world, Luke. You take your ideals and you say, how can I help the community? How can I reach them? And you take that action. And when it's of a positive nature, it's only going to grow like a flower, my friend.
We got a comment saying, Jason, your mic needs Viagra. I wish I would have seen that comment earlier. They're saying your audio is pretty low.
Oh, man, I'm sorry about that, guys.
Gosh darn it. But that's okay. We're learning, we're building, we're expanding, and of course, with your feedback and your participation, we're able to do what we do. And I think that's another example. Voting with your dollar, voting with your attention, voting with your clicks. You have more authority than you think. And just being a part of something is a huge step in making it happen. Our dream, again, it's not to just moan and whine and complain about those people and just the bad. It's about doing something and replacing the mainstream media by doing their job better. That's ultimately our idea. And we're slowly on the way there. I mean, already we have accomplished so much. In the beginning stages of our kind of organization, we went through so many different periods, whether it was doing outreaches for specific charity organizations, raising money, giving to donations to the people that were screwed over by the government, being there for individuals, sharing stories and highlighting individuals that were doing something out of the ordinary and away from the corporate government state that is trying to engulf and just take advantage of everyone for their own personal benefit and the benefit of the stockholders. So, like, I think we're doing great. I think we have a lot of obstacles. We're getting kicked on the balls by all these social media monopoly buttholes. But as they all obsess about poop holes, it's literally all they talk about now. And now we're here talking about something real. And I'm internally grateful for this opportunity. It means the world to me. I'm very happy that Jason is joining me on this ride and helping in this expansion. We're all learning how to be better. We're all notch. And again, you guys are one of the main reasons why this is possible. So I love you guys. Thank you again so much for watching. Jason, do you want to end off and say something else?
I just want to thank everybody that's been tuning in. Remind everybody that I will be live over on the Facebook page like we are every day. That's facebook.com/wearechange.org. Please subscribe and share the videos that we do over at youtube.com/wearechange. And please, folks, remember, you can be the change you want to see in the world. You just got to get motivated and get out there. And God bless you all. Luke Rudkowski, any send-off?
No, just the usual. Love ya! Thank you again so much for watching.